Far side, I have David Mango and Roy Harrington, and if he comes in later, it'll be Hank Gosar. The Secretary Treasurer with us tonight is Justin Leung. He's just closing the door there. The planner with us tonight is Marty Rokos, and we have a Council Committee Secretary with us, Linda Bottos. For each application that we'll be considering tonight, this is the process that will occur. I'll briefly outline the purpose of each application. Then the applicant or agent will be given an opportunity to make a presentation, however, one is not required. It's the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as we've received it. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I'll invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address at the microphone and sign the corresponding request for notice form, which is on the table over there. After completing the form, please provide it to the Secretary Treasurer, Justin. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced amongst the committee in respect of a motion, no further presentations will be made. Please note that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information provided is being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including posting on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please ensure that all questions and/or comments are directed through me as the chair from the microphone, and if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant may be given the opportunity to return to the microphone and respond to any questions or comments that the committee feels relevant. The reports that are being considered tonight are also available on that desk in front of you. Should you wish to receive a formal notification of any of the decisions of tonight's meeting, please complete that appropriate form as well, which is over there. However, the owners and the applicants will be automatically notified. So we'll get going with tonight's meeting. Do I have any declarations of interest? Seeing none, thank you. I'll look for approval of tonight's agenda.
Through the chair, I'll move to approve tonight's agenda with one minor change. I'll ask that we deal with item 4 first, which is a deferral.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. We have minutes to confirm tonight. We have minutes of our meeting 1711 from November 9th, 2017. They have been amended. Look for a motion, please. Can you move it? David wasn't here. Yeah.
I so move.
Thank you. Second it?
I guess I'll second.
Yeah, David was the only one missing there. All in favor? That's right. That carries, thank you. And we have our minutes of December 7th, meeting number 1712. Tom was absent for that meeting and will abstain. So thank you, David. Second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor? They carry as well. Thank you. All right. So we will look to application number 4. Get things back in order here. This is an application for Don Hadcock and Lisa Lu Xing, 14014 Bayview Avenue, and we understand that there is a request for deferral on this application. Is that correct? Anybody present for that application? Just press the...
Oh, which button? Daniel Hadcock, Bayview Avenue 14014. Yeah, requesting a deferral. There was something missed by the town, so they've asked us to recirculate. We're respecting the process, so we'll be back here in February.
So I will move that minor variance application MV 2017-41A through C be deferred to a future meeting.
Seconder for that? All in favor? So for the next application tonight, it is minor variance application, 1940 Vandorf Side Road, concession 3, part lot 16, file number MV 2017-45A through D. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw number 6000-17 as amended, respecting to allow construction of a detached dwelling within the Oak Ridges Moraine Zone lands. The property is in a Oak Ridges Moraine Countryside Area C-ORM zone and Oak Ridges Moraine National Linkage NL-ORM zone. Section 14.4.3 bracket I of the zoning bylaw states, no development or site alteration shall occur on Category 1 and Category 2 lands without an amendment or relief from the zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached dwelling within Category 2 landform conservation area, thus requiring a variance from the provision of this bylaw. Application MV 2017-45B is seeking relief from the same bylaw to allow construction of a detached dwelling within Oak Ridges Moraine Zone lands. Section 17-1 of the zoning bylaw does not include detached dwelling as a permitted use. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached dwelling, thus requiring a variance to allow as a permitted use. Application MV 2017-45C is seeking relief to allow construction of a detached dwelling within Oak Ridges Moraine Zone lands. Section 17.1.3 of the zoning bylaw states new single residential dwellings and related accessory uses on existing lots will only be permitted through minor variance or zoning bylaw amendment. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached dwelling on an existing lot, thus requiring variance to permit construction. And finally, 2017-45D is seeking relief to allow an increase in building height. Section 17.11 of the zoning bylaw allows a maximum building height of 10 meters. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached dwelling with a height of 13.9 meters, thus requiring a variance of 3.9. Planning Division had no objections subject to condition. Building Division had no comments. Engineering had no objections. Operational Services had no objections subject to conditions. Central York Fire, no comments were received. Electric Utilities had no objections. The York Region had no objections provided Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan policies are adhered to. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority had no objections subject to a condition. Ministry of Transportation had no objection, and the town of Whitchurch-Stouffville there were no comments received. Is the applicant or agent present for this one? Would you like to come forward and give us any kind of a presentation?
Yes, my name is Brian Whitehead, and I am the engineer and the agent on this property. With me is Linda Sober, who is the biologist who's carried out the Natural Heritage Evaluation Study, Sean Mogadesian, the owner, and his sister and an acquaintance, business partner. As you've indicated, we really don't have any objections. This is basically putting a house on an existing 10-acre lot. We put a lot of effort into trying to site it so that it was in the least sensitive part of the property. The middle area where the house is going is a you could call it a volunteered stand of black locust, which are 40 feet tall with a little pom-pom on the top. They're really very poor quality trees. And that is predominantly what we're going to be cutting to put this facility in. We do have a driveway coming in, and that will take out some pine trees. This was, in the 1970s, an open farm field. And over the years, they planted up the two east and west sides. There are large poplar trees and very large spruce. There's a couple of other large trees here and there. The rest of it, as I went through all the photographs from the 70s, basically it grew by itself and was never managed, so it's in pretty poor condition. We had the natural heritage evaluation, which involved a number of visits to look at this and some serious looking at the back where we do have some constraints in the term of a watercourse, wetlands and so on. We're not impacting on them at all. We had a registered forester arborist out, and she looked at the area. She looked at 3 stands, plots, what you like, and she went in and measured the trees and determined the density roughly. And we've used those numbers to estimate the number of trees. We negotiated with Parks Department, came up with a appropriate means of analyzing the cost. We came up with a budget that apparently has met with their likings. So our approach is to do as sensitive a job as possible with as little damage as possible, and build a reasonable sized house that'll be a credit to the municipality and the neighborhood.
Excellent. There are 4 conditions, and a number of them do have subpoints. Can you just confirm that you've read all those and you have no objection to those conditions?
We have no objection. The conditions basically are how are we going to keep until I had finalized the plan, which was reflecting on what the arborist did. We couldn't then go in and do the final details on how we do it because, one, we needed approval. So yes, we're quite comfortable with doing the additional work to preserve the trees. When we paid for the trees, we'd like to keep as many as possible.
That's great. Thank you very much, Mr. Whitehead. Maybe just stay close. I'll ask if there's any members of the public who would like to address us on this application. Thank you. Okay, seeing none, then I will look to the committee for any comments or questions.
Maybe I'll start. Question to staff on this one. Notice that the application was circulated to the Ministry of Transportation and the town of Stouffville and Whitchurch. I do see that there were no comments received from the municipality to our south, but the Ministry of Transportation has no objection, but there's some information in there that requires the applicant to obtain a permit from the MTO. It's not listed in the conditions. Is there a reason why it wouldn't be?
Marty?
And while you're giving that some consideration, from my experience, anything that takes place within 400 meters of the
Sorry. Sorry. Through the chair, I did receive that comment from the MTO. The reason I didn't set it as a condition, usually when we get an agency or department commenting, they would say no objection subject to a condition. Here, they didn't set it as a condition. They made a reference here, so that's why I put it under the supplementary information. However, it could be a form of a condition that they would have to contact MTO to meet requirements for a permit.
Yeah, okay, and from my experience, my understanding is anything within 400 meters of Ministry of Transportation property does require an applicant or someone seeking a permit to follow through on that. And I guess to the applicant, to Mr. Whitehead, you wouldn't have any objection to obtaining that?
That's the form already partly filled out by the owner.
Very good. Okay, and so if a motion is coming forward, either through myself or one of my other colleagues, I'll either include it or amend the motion that might be forthcoming, just to make sure that it is there. It should have been there. That's the only thing I had on this.
Thank you, David. Roy, any comments or questions? Dave?
Yeah, through the chair, just for information purposes, I can see condition number 2, on page number 4, the first breakpoint there, it's about the replanting and compensation. Approximately out of the number of trees or the area where you are removing the trees, how much of that area or how many of the trees are you replanting? And how much or how many of the trees you are just compensating, like cash in row?
Could you repeat the question again?
So, I believe you are cutting trees with this type of work you're doing, yeah. So maybe from the arborist or forester, maybe you did the analysis and you know how many trees you are cutting. And so what I'm saying is, out of the number of trees you are cutting, how many are you replanting, like 1-to-1? And how many are you going through the compensation policy?
There was, within the arborist report, there was an evaluation of each. All right. There was an evaluation in 4 plots as to, this is a 4-inch tree, this is a 5-inch tree, 6-inch tree, and came up with a rating which represents that black locust area. The trees are all considered extremely poor quality. As I indicated, a lot of them are dead. They're very tall with they're so tight that all you've got is a little bit of branches on the top. So we came up with a number of trees. There's an equation in the report. We went and met with Parks. We discussed the value of the trees, and I would have to dig it up, but I think there's a $26,000 that has to be spent on replacement materials in order to compensate for the trees that are being cut.
Another question. I haven't seen much in the report, in the evaluation report regarding infiltration measures and so on. As you be cutting trees, you'll be increasing, runoff. And as you know, in this area, you need more infiltration to the ground to replenish or recharge groundwater. What are your plans to deal with that matter?
Well, in my report, which discusses the hydrogeology, geology, and soils and so on, the soils would appear to be, there's a ridge through the property, and those would appear to be sands. So that we are definitely going to have coverage, and the numbers are in my report, and if you want I can dig them up, but they're in there. Basically, we meet the requirements, because this is a 10-acre property, we meet the requirements of the Oak Ridges Moraine Conformance Plan, and all of that information was in my report and has gone to conservation and the town, and it would appear to be accepted. What we are doing is running swales in directions where there's a very long path from the house to the watercourse in the back. There will be a significant opportunity for infiltration along that route. And the rest of the water, which is presently sheet runoff, there are no swales on the property now in terms of concentration of flows. So we're going to maintain that sheet runoff. What we're doing is picking up the water off the house and the driveway and running that down long swales, which will allow for infiltration of the water. And they've got to be 2% because that's standard, but they will be as flat as possible to allow infiltration. Basically, we're going to have just the house, the driveway, and the pool and patio impermeable, and that won't have a significant impact on infiltration there.
All right. Then I will look to the committee for a motion, please. Want to move it with the condition?
So through the chair, I will move that minor variance application MV 2017-45A through D be approved subject to conditions. In addition, that I guess the fifth condition would be that a permit from the Ministry of Transportation be obtained prior to the issuance of a building permit on this site.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Okay. Any comments or questions on the motion? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Gosar. We're number 4, we moved to number 1. It was a deferral that's been taken care of, and we've just dealt with the former application number 1, which is known as number 2 now, and we will move on to 36 Mendes Forest. Okay, this is minor variance application 36 Mendes Forest, Lot 19, Plan 65M2228, file number MV 2017-46A and B. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw number 6000-17 as amended, respecting to allow a reduction in the rear yard setback to construct a one-story addition sunroom. The property is in a detached fourth density residential R423 zone. Section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters. The applicant is proposing 6.9 meters, thus requiring a variance of 0.6 meters. Application 2017-46B is seeking relief to allow an increase in the eaves projection to construct a one-story addition sunroom. The property is in the detached fourth density residential R423 zone. Section 4.20 of the zoning bylaw allows a maximum projection of 0.7 meters into any required yard. The applicant is proposing eaves encroachment of 0.78 meters into the rear yard, thus requiring a variance of 0.08 meters. Planning had no objections, Building and Division had no comments, Engineering had no objections subject to a condition. Operational Services, no comments. Central York, no comments received. Central York Fire. Electric Utilities, no objections. York Region, no objections. And the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, no comments were received. Applicant or agent for this one? Hi.
Hi. So my name is Alexandra Odish from Four Seasons Sunrooms on behalf of my clients at 36 Mendes Forest. Did you want me to repeat the variances? I don't really know. Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
one-story sunroom addition. Our two variances being the rear yard setback of 7.5 is what's required, and we're proposing 6.9. And then our encroachment of 0.78 meters, whereas what's required is 0.7 meters. And we do accept the condition of the grading plan.
Okay. That's great. Thanks very much. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this application? Thank you. Nope, seeing none, then I will ask the committee if they have any questions or comments on this application. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Just a quick question to the applicant or the applicant's agent, I'm sorry. When I look at the design, and I'm going to assume that the section that's encroaching is the octagonal, just that one octagonal section closest to the rear yard. So it's not the entire back of the proposed addition. Am I correct in that? Maybe staff? You're probably
Through the chair, that's correct. That's the portion that encroaches into the setback.
so. So then my question back to you is that octagonal, is that a custom design, or is that sort of like a standard design for the company that you take out and just drop in? Is that?
Models, and yeah, so it is a standard model.
Okay, so that kind of explains why you're here, and I would assume that the other comment that you will probably agree with me on is when I look at the application, the applicant is saying that they're trying to use this standard size, and it makes that part of the sunroom more, quote, usable space, and that's basically what we're looking at there. It's because they wanted a minimum size so that it becomes a more functional space. Am I correct in that? Oh. And that would be a good reason from my perspective to ask for a variance. Okay, I'm good now.
I'll look for a motion, please.
Excuse me. I put forward the motion to approve applications MV 21746A and 46B, subject to the conditions from staff.
Seconder? I'll second it. Thank you, Roy. All in favor? And our next application is a consent application, 2567086 Ontario Inc., 100 Tyler Street and 34 to 46 George Street, lots 10, 11, 12, 13, 20, and part of lot 24 on registered plan 30, file number C 2017-10. The owner has submitted a consent application to sever the subject lands to create an additional lot with frontage onto Tyler Street. Planning Services had no objections. Building Services, no objections. Engineering Division had no objections, subject to conditions. Operational Services had no objections, subject to conditions. Central York Fire Services, no comments received. Electric Utilities, no objections. York Region, no objections. Legal Services had no objections, subject to a condition. Heritage Planning of Planning Services had no objections and did provide some supplementary information. And in addition to that, just before I move on, we received very late today, and I hope all committee members have received a copy of a letter that we did receive from a Ms. Cindy Skillens that arrived at the Planning Department today by email. Did everyone receive that? Hank, do you have a copy of that? Okay, all right. And you both got a copy as well? Okay, all right. Applicant or agent for this one? Hi.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Angela Scabaris. I'm with Macaulay Show-Me Housing. I'm the planning consultant for the owner of the property. My client had, in the last 2 years, assembled the lands at 100 Tyler and 34 to 46 George Street, as outlined on the aerial. Those lands have been consolidated, and it is her intention to sever off 100 Tyler so that it's more in conformity with the adjacent lots to the east and to the south, and to demolish the existing single-story bungalow that's on the property and replace it with a two-story single-detached dwelling. The lot is in full compliance. As you can see, it's quite regular with the adjacent lots to the east and to the south, and their intention is to be in full compliance with the zoning bylaw standards, so no variances are being requested.
Okay, can you just maybe, since that drawing is up there, show us where the severance would actually be on that elbow-shaped? Those are the subject lands, and this is the area here to be severed, and the balance of the lands would be retained and remain as is. There are 4 dwellings on the remaining lands to be retained, which will stay in place. There's no intentions of doing anything with that property. Okay, and there are a number of conditions in the report. I think grand total of many sub-bullets, but 5 conditions, and many of them have sub-bullets. They've been reviewed, and you have no objection to those? Okay, yeah. And just for my clarification quickly to staff, we are not dealing with anything that may or may not be built on that lot tonight. We're simply dealing with the fact that this one piece to be severed from the rest, and full stop, and that's really the only subject matter that we're dealing with tonight?
That's correct.
Thank you very much, and that's your understanding as well. Okay, all right. So I'm going to ask if there are members of the public. I presume that that's why we have a crowd here tonight. Please come forward one at a time. Make your comments. Start with your name and address. Anyone who wishes to make comments to us. And I would ask that you not repeat each other. No more weight is given to any one issue based on the number of people that say it over and over to us. So if you have something new to add to the previous speaker, please come forward. And we would love to hear from you all if you have comments. So I'll open the microphone and invite you to come forward.
Hi, my name's Emil Simon. I own a property that backs onto this property. It's hard to see from the diagram, but if you take the lot that's being proposed to be severed off and continue back, my property is a pretty big one, and it backs onto it. And all I'm here to do is add a condition if I can. The owner of this property, when they bought it, they ended up renting that lot. There's a house on it, and they rented it to the grandson of the previous owner. And they've had a huge tree in the back of this property that's overhanging my lot. And this tree is broken and it's ready to...
Sir, is it possible for you to use the diagram and give us a sense of what your, like where your lot hits it? And
I can't draw on this one, right? Okay, how do I point to it? Oh, here. It's right here. Oh, okay, perfect. Oh, this works. Oh, this is great. Okay. Okay, so my property goes all the way here. That's my land right, backs on here completely. It's it's right here. This is 9 Harriman Road, but I also own the land that's back in here as well. So I have most of the boundary to this property, and there's a large tree here that's overhanging my lot. And And I've written, I've actually written to the owner, left messages at this property. They're well aware of this, but they've ignored it. So, I feel like before they're allowed to sever it and then eliminate the issue, I think they should address that concern. And I've made it, very politely. This has been for over a period of several months now. And if the tree falls, it'll damage my fence and everything else. So I would just like that tree the current tenant that's in that house here, there's a house here, the current tenant is very well aware of the issue. And he actually has talked to the owner as well, apparently, and it's been ignored. So I just don't want more problems, and I just like their tree removed that's overhanging my property.
Thank you. Could I ask you a question? Have you at all dealt with the town on this matter? Have you talked to our Parks Department at all on this?
Thing, because in the past, as neighbors, we just deal with each other. When my trees hang over someone's property, just cut them down. So that was I didn't know I had to go any further, I guess.
Fair enough. I guess I would, and I'm going to ask if Marty would like to weigh in from a staff perspective, but both the bylaw department has a tree bylaw that's administered through the town, and our Parks Department obviously has a very vested interest in any tree that, and what its condition is. So I would suggest that rather than us putting a condition on a development here or a severance here, on a part of the lot that's not really part of the severance, I would just strongly recommend that you do reach out to the town staff. You could speak with Marty tonight before you leave, and he could give you some names and extensions, and I think that's likely the best way to address it, if that's helpful. Okay.
Any questions? Okay, I'm done.
Did you wish to come forward and comment on that one as the applicant?
I would be happy to.
And there are conditions, Mr. Simon, just for your information, that one of the committee members pointed out, that do require some arborist's work before this can proceed. So if there's an arborist on the site, they're definitely going to make note of what you're talking about. But okay, so thank you very much. Next, please.
I'm Chris Cameron. I'm 13 Harryman. Again, I'm right next to Emil. I have actually one question and a follow-up on his. They have a tree that fell into my backyard, and I knocked on the door to take it out, and they haven't done that yet. Okay, so it's actually quite dangerous. It's just hanging there in my backyard.
Perfect. Well, again, so we have arborists that are going to be on site through this process, and the applicant's agent has agreed to speak directly with you, so perhaps we can have that taken care of as well.
Yeah, and I approached them about a month ago, and no one's come by. But I guess the question is, what really are they doing here? I mean, I'm trying to see this upside down, right here. So are they cutting it here, cutting in here, and this is still going to be open space?
No. No. So you see what's on the screen before you is what we're being asked to approve tonight. So there would be one lot, the long skinny one, and then that's the one that will face Tyler Street, and we're told that, yep, and for tonight, 34 through 46 remains intact as it is today. Those right stamped in the middle, it says lands to be retained. So the whole thing, that whole, just take your pen right around the red line. That still all stays as one legally registered conveyable lot, period. That's all we're... Yes, that's all that's on the, nothing that's before us. Okay.
There's 4 lots being here.
Actually, that's a good question for staff. That was my question to staff. The 4 homes that exist that face onto George Street, are they currently 4 separate lots, or have they been consolidated into one?
Madam Chair, my understanding of that, and perhaps the applicant can give more details, is that those properties have been merged into one. I don't know the details and the background of that, but hopefully the applicant could give some more background on that and the process that led to that happening.
So what you're saying, that's one big lot, that's going to be a lot, then we have this open green space.
Sorry, that line that you keep sort of focusing on in the middle is not a lot line anymore, is my understanding. This can fairly easily be confirmed through the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation property tax rolls right here at the town office. If you come in and they were, if that was at one time 4 or even 5 lots, if that back thing was separate, and they have been consolidated into one, the property tax department will have all the documentation on that, and they'll have when that happened, and they'll show all the roll numbers that may have existed go away, and it becomes one property roll number. I'm just going to get the applicant to come up and confirm that we're correct, but you can also confirm it, I would think, through the public assessment rolls.
Yes, Madam Chair, you're correct. Originally, 100 Tyler included this parcel, so that it was an irregular shaped parcel. And then there were the 4 separate parcels on George Street. When my client purchased the lands merged and under one ownership, and then they were legally consolidated into one lot. After the consolidation, she wanted to sever 100 Tyler off, as I was explaining this evening. So you're correct. What's the underlying information there was the historical information. So there are those 4 existing dwellings, and what will be left, if this gets severed, will be these lands here will be left as is.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it for me. Does that, where did you go? Oh, there you are. Does that clarify it for you? Yeah, I guess. You can't speak from there because of the microphone, the recording. It's only because the recording needs to pick up what we're talking about. Thank you.
So yes, but I guess where she's now having the big one, is there new builds going there? Or is that just...
We have no information on that at this time, and that's not before us tonight. If anything is planned to be done on that big lot, it will come forward through its appropriate process to staff when and if they choose to do that. Okay? Mr. Simon, I'd be happy to welcome you back, but I'd like to give other people who haven't spoken yet a chance first, if you don't mind. We'd like to give everybody a one shot.
Hi, I'm Susan Hallworth. I live at 96 Tyler Street beside the existing lot. I have a question about the big lot now. I had been into the town over the years, and they had told me that that big lot, well, the part of 100 Tyler Street behind me, is a floodplain. Is that true?
We'll direct that over to staff.
Madam Chair, I'm just opening up the zoning to look at where exactly that is.
Okay, we'll give him a couple minutes to look.
Just where the floodplain is in relation to the rest of the property.
Do you have any other questions? Is that your only question at this point? Okay, all right. When staff is ready to answer, is there anyone else that would like to speak that hasn't had a chance? No. Mr. Simon, come on back.
I think it's important. Now, because there are 4 houses still there and they're rented out, or there's people there, does that not impact your decision whether or not it actually has been amalgamated into one lot and the applicant is indeed the owner of the one lot? For example, that hasn't occurred, and those are not all one lots, and the applicant doesn't own all of it, then I'm not sure you could even make that decision today. So the way it exists today is there's houses there, there's people living there. I have a hard time imagining that MPAC, because I've been dealing with MPAC over the years, they're not that simple. It takes a while to do things, that this was all nicely put into one lot somehow. So I think that's important, is it not? Because the application, if that one company does not indeed own all the lots at once, then it would make the decision different, I think.
All right, so I'm going to actually jump in because my background is I'm a property tax and assessment expert, have been for about 30 years. So I can tell you that lots are consolidated all the time. The only absolute to consolidate lots into one is common ownership. So I could buy my next door neighbor's house, and once I own both homes, I can apply. MPAC generally does not have any issue with not consolidating lots unless someone at the municipality objects for some particular reason, and they simply issue a document called a SCIF is the short name for it, but it's a severance and consolidation information form. They send that to the town, and the town alters the roll and deletes the existing roll numbers and gives it one new roll number and gives it its new dimensions and taxes it accordingly. So it will now be taxed under one roll number. It'll show that it has 4 buildings on it. Doesn't really matter. Those people are now tenants of the current owner on a lot. So I wouldn't, I can't tell you 100% for sure because I don't have the roll book in front of me, but when staff present us lots drawn like this, we know it's because they've done the due diligence and they've checked with the tax roll. And so I have no reason to question that this accurately is one big elbow-shaped lot today with actually probably 5 houses on it, and they're looking to sever off one piece of that. I'll ask staff just to jump in and confirm, but I think their reports are generally accurate in that regard.
Madam Chair, just to confirm, just had a look at the official plan and zoning mapping, that neither of those shows any of the subject lands as being in a floodplain. There is a floodplain close by, a bit to the north and west of the subject lands, but not the lands themselves. And I can also confirm that to submit an application to the town and for it to be accepted, the owner has to own the whole lands. And if anyone is submitting something on behalf of the owner, that has to be signed off by the owner. So it is all owned by one party. And as I said before, I wasn't sure the background of how it got merged, but they did all get merged, and it is all one property. I can confirm that.
Again, you could probably get the document from the property tax department here. They will have the historical document that instructed them to change the tax roll in that regard. And in terms of the floodplain, does that answer your question? And do you have any follow-up there?
Yes, that does answer my question. I have one other question about the size of the house that's going in. I saw the drawings. I did notice with the house on the other side of me, which is 6,500 square feet, once the people moved in, my water pressure has dropped considerably. I will be running my tap and all of a sudden the water pressure drops. Nothing else is going on in my house. So I'm concerned about the services going in, the increase in size of these houses that are going and how they're impacting my house. My house is about 85 years old, and I don't think that's really acceptable that I'm having that problem. So how does that get dealt with, that I'm not going to be suffering a worse problem than I already am now?
So when anything is proposed to be done on the lot, again, as I said tonight, the only thing before us is, can we sever this piece of land? They've provided a drawing of something they would like to build on there, but that's not before us tonight for approval. That will go through all of the necessary approvals, building, the planning. Marty can actually, again, I'm sure he'd be happy to speak with you after and give you the process, but they'll have to apply for a demolition permit that has to be approved. Then there has to be building permits approved. They have to meet the building and zoning standards, or they'd be back before us for variances if it was going to be bigger than what the lot could allow. We get applications like that. None of that is before us tonight. So we're just simply saying, yes, you can sever it off and leave it alone. We're not saying they have to leave it alone, but that's all they have permission to do at this point in time if we grant the approval to sever. It's the only thing before us.
Okay, can I just ask one more question then? Who would I speak to about the water issue? Because I would like to know how to prevent that with this house.
Infrastructure and environmental services here at the town. And again, Marty or Justin will be happy to give you names and extensions of the people that work in that department. That's definitely within their bailiwick. Okay, thank you.
Through the condition here, condition number 3, second bullet point addresses the issue about water connection and so on.
Okay, so there is a condition in the report that speaks about the water and the servicing as well. So if anything goes forward in terms of developing it, it's in the report. But reach out to IES and they'll walk you through that, I'm sure. Okay. All right, any other members of the public who would like to raise any comments, questions, concerns, ask us anything, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Sandy Beaver, and I live at 86 Tyler Street. My question, I hope it's an appropriate one, is with the lots on George Street, is the intention now that that is all one piece of property, that the fence line on the back of those homes, will that be opened up, and will they have access to that other property to the left-hand side there? It's been almost like a park-like for us behind our home. It's a beautiful spot for many of us, and if this is going to be all opened up, it opens up a whole variety of people back there, and we just want to know if that's the intention.
Okay, we'll put that question to the applicant. At this point in time, you've indicated that the 4 homes are going to remain. They're rentals. Is there any plan to remove the fencing and allow access to the back end of that large lot?
Madam Chair, that item hasn't come up in discussion, but I can certainly ask my clients. I suspect, I don't know, I haven't walked to the back of the properties, that there's probably some people accessing back there anyways, but I will certainly find out if they are intending on keeping the fence up. I can't see them removing it, but I can't say. We haven't talked about that.
I appreciate. So if you could connect with this lady, you can get the answer to your question. Okay. Anyone else from the public? I want to be sure that everybody has a chance to bring their concerns forward. Okay, I'll close that portion then, and I'm going to pass it over to the members of the committee now for questions and comments.
Okay, through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to have the question answered that was asked in the letter from, was it Miss Skillens, about the, I think she referred to an underground stream, was it? And I guess that would be directed to staff or the applicant's agent, whether that might be addressed.
Marty, can you comment on that? Have you read the letter that just arrived very late today, and are you prepared to comment on that?
Madam Chair, I've read the letter. I don't have any information on an underground stream. The applications do get circulated to the Conservation Authority, but I don't have any information specifically on an underground stream there. And just to reiterate that the zoning and official plan mapping doesn't show any sort of floodplain or environmental hazard on the retained portion of the property.
Well, it doesn't, it doesn't. I appreciate what Marty's saying, but sometimes these things do get lost, and the fact that this resident would raise it just flags it for me, and I'd really like to know very definitely one way or the other.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to correct what I mentioned earlier. The property is actually not in the regulated area for the Conservation Authority, so they were not circulated. So if it's not in their regulated area, they don't need to look at it.
So I'm wondering, might it be appropriate then, and you can consider this, Hank, in view of your question, to add a condition that staff, prior to releasing this, if it's approved, do the investigation and determine whether there is an how does she word it? She calls it an underwater water course, but I think she meant to say underground water course. That goes under 100 Tyler, so perhaps staff should be, as part of a condition, should investigate that and determine whether it would have any impact on this. We certainly can add that condition since that information is not here tonight, just as a suggestion.
One further question through you, Madam Chair. I have heard that there was a previous development proposal for the entire property, and I'd like to have staff respond to that and advise whether that was the case at one point.
Through the chair, there was a development proposal that was looked at by council in October. As you know, there's a new zoning bylaw that was passed, a new comprehensive bylaw that was passed in June. And with the new changes to the provincial legislation, after a new comprehensive bylaw is passed, there can't be any applications to amend the bylaw for 2 years unless council passes a resolution to accept an application. So the owners submitted a proposal. It was for a 26 three-story freehold townhouse units on the subject property. Council looked at that and they actually refused that to have it submitted. So basically that application can't be submitted until that 2-year period is up. That proposal is not something that will be seen by the town for the rest of that period, at least.
Just as a follow-up, Marty, when would that 2 years be up?
Madam Chair, that 2 years would be up in, it would be 2 years from June of 2017, so it would be 2019.
So that will come before a new council, first year in their term then, 19.
Madam Chair, it would be up to the applicant to submit an application, and anything that does get submitted would go to council and be reviewed by staff and go through a public planning meeting and to be reviewed by council.
Through the chair, there was, I believe in our notes received from staff, a concern that Heritage Planning staff had. They didn't have any objections, but the comment was that the committee look at building height and design of the proposed dwelling in context of the neighborhood again, which is located within a heritage resource area. I'm wondering, I took I've been up and down Tyler many times, and obviously this committee has seen other applications come forward in this area of the town, very similar to what we're seeing here on Tyler. The drawings that are attached to this application, I'll ask staff. Are those drawings right now just for our information for the Tyler address at this point?
Through the chair, the drawings showing elevations, they're for information. And the heritage comments, that property is not listed or designated, so it's really just the heritage planner asking the applicant to consider the comments, but it's not something that would go to the Heritage Committee.
So again, all right, so there would be no condition at this point that we would be looking at in terms of any heritage question that may be coming forward.
Through the chair, that's correct. There are no conditions attached to this memo.
Okay. And this is just really a comment, and I think the applicant will confirm. So when you get a consolidation of lots like we have seen here, lands to be retained, the large block, the existing zoning R3, all of the provisions for that zone continue to apply to those 4 properties. In other words, they are single-family dwellings. They would have to comply with all of the setbacks and anything that the owner or a tenant would ask the owner to do would have to comply with provisions of that zone as if it were the individual lots. And I see the applicant is actually agreeing with me. So that if I'm a resident in that neighborhood, I'm looking at 4 existing properties on George Street that continue to remain single-family dwellings, not before properties, but from a zoning perspective, and a zoning perspective only. So if an addition, for example, was contemplated for one of those homes, it would have to meet the requirements of that zone. Otherwise, regardless of ownership, would have to come before council or before this committee for variances that would then be required for that particular property. And again, I'm assuming for the rest of the folks that are here who are kind of maybe shaking their heads, why are we looking at one big lot when clearly there are 4 homes on it, that all of the provisions for the existing zoning still apply to them individually. Applicant?
Through you, Madam Chair, just I'm obviously not a zoning expert, but I would almost say that I don't even think an addition would be permitted to those 4 lots because they're no longer individual lots. So they would remain as is, no change. And just to clarify, because I don't want anybody thinking that I was trying to hide anything, I just didn't bring it up because it has absolutely no status. We did meet with staff quite a number of months ago, I'd say about 6, maybe more months ago, with a plan that showed a townhouse development. It was a preliminary meeting, and at that meeting, one of the comments that staff had was that they did not want a connection, internal road connection going from George to Tyler. We had said that's fine, we would not do that. The town zoning bylaw was approved, And Marty's correct, the Planning Act basically puts a moratorium or a freeze on any amendments to a new zoning bylaw for 2 years. We had to come to council to ask not for them to even look at our application, but only for permission for us to submit an application. So I had brought a concept plan to that meeting to show council what the intent was, but they had absolutely no comment on the development, and we were turned down. So as were a number of other people. So there is no application. There were no background studies done. It has absolutely no status. So I don't want anybody to think that there's something going on in the background. There isn't. But my clients, when the freeze was put on and the council refused our opportunity to submit the application, my client said, look, we can't put a road through to Tyler anyways. Can we just sever that off in keeping with the rest of the street? We'll put up a new house, and that sort of deals with that issue. So there will never, regardless of whatever happens on the balance of the lands, there will never be a connection through to Tyler. So that was sort of the intent. So I just wanted to make that clear.
All right, any more questions? Thank you, Madam Chair. No, okay. We'll go to this side. Questions or comments? Roy, go ahead.
Oh, could you come forward, please? The irregular shaped parcel to the rear of Tyler Street, at the back of the 5 lots? Yes. Okay. Would that have been under the same ownership as this little lot on Tyler?
You're talking about this area here? Yeah. Originally, it was. When my client purchased the property, 100 Tyler, that was the shape of 100 Tyler.
It was the same title?
It was, and I historically, I don't know how that came to be. It looks a little unusual, but that's the way they bought it, yeah.
When was it severed off then?
I have no idea. Yeah, this was all consolidated, yes. And sorry.
Under the same title as the little house we're going to sever on Tyler. When were they separated?
They were not separated. We are proposing to separate it now. It was never separated when my client purchased that property along with the 4 on George. The title merged and the properties were then consolidated.
So therefore, that land should be colored red and belong to Tyler Street.
No, we're having it remain with the lands on George.
The exact purpose of this application. Originally, this was 1 lot, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots. These ones ended here. So this was always all 1 lot. When these 4 were purchased, and they were all consolidated to 1. So this is right now today, this elbow shape is 1 lot. They're now asking to draw this line and sever just this piece off. Does that make sense, Roy? The person who lived in that little house on Tyler owned that whole back part too.
That's right.
Yep, yeah. But when they bought all of these, they consolidated all of that together. So today, if you follow the outside lines only, that's the shape of the lot today. You see this? The way I'm doing it? So it exists like this today. Up here, across here, up here, around, and all the way down. What they're asking us to do today is allow them to draw this line here.
So will you be erecting a dwelling on the little lot on Tyler? Here.
That makes sense, Mike? Chef, go ahead.
Do you mind? Sorry, you got me again. Sorry, Angela. Through the chair, I want to come back to the package that was submitted, okay? Because I want to confirm, you've shown on this drawing here, you've shown I assume is the house, the proposed house, and there are no variances being would there, sorry, we're only dealing with the severance here. If I look at what you're showing on 100 Tyler, does everything that I see there and everything that's in the package conform to zoning regulations for that zone? Yes, it does. It does, eh? So what we are looking at here could be built without a variance. Thank you.
Actually, thank you. That was my question. I didn't understand why we were seeing the house. Either we generally only see a house if there's a variance required from us. I didn't understand why the house was before us at all. If you don't need us, we didn't need to see that.
I advised my clients that I didn't want to come back twice. So I said, if you're going to need a variance, I want to do it at the same time. And I strongly recommended to them that they, probably shooting myself in the foot here, but it's a new build and there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to build something within the parameters of the zoning unless it's for some unexplainable reason. But for this, in this case, there was no reason why they couldn't build within the zoning parameters. And so in support of our consent application, I asked them to do the drawings for the house.
And that's important. So thank you for raising that for the members of the public here tonight. What they're basically saying is the house that's going to be built on there meets all of the zoning and building standards in place today. No exceptions. So even if this severance wasn't happening or anything else around it wasn't happening, that house could simply be built by any one of you on that lot without coming before us. It does meet everything that's in place today. So I think that's important because I was a little confused about that myself. So thank you.
Through the chair, if I could just add, commenting more recently, even with the severances, is requesting that they do provide the house designs as well. I know that the committee, the public sometimes has interest with it, and also similar to what Angela just mentioned, just to do, even at that initial stage, check to make sure they're zoning compliant so that we don't have to come back again for a potential minor variance issue.
Yeah, through the chair, actually, all this, of course, they are providing all this information. But if you look specifically about the application for land severance or consent, all this information, all these designs, they are not required. Okay, we have to be clear here. These are not required. But of course, it's good for her. She's very good, and that she makes sure that all the information is there to cover any other future applications. But really, for the consent, for land severance, all these designs. Even this comment from Heritage, considering building height and design, is not required for land severance. It's just extra information. I just want to make it clear. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Have we exhausted comments, questions from the committee? Okay. So I'm going to look for a motion. Thank you very much, Angela.
Through the chair, that the application be approved subject to the conditions suggested in the staff report.
So we'll just be clear, it's the consent application to sever the subject lands to create the lot fronting Tyler Street. That's it.
Yeah.
Full stop. Seconder for that?
Through the chair, I'll second that.
Okay, and I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Question, where are we going to add the other little reference to the investigation of this?
Thank you. My apologies. So Hank would like to request a friendly, all right, could we request a friendly amendment to your motion that a condition, an additional condition be placed that staff investigate the neighborhood letter as to whether there is a water course underneath and what impact that may or may not have?
Through the chair, I have a problem with that condition. How are they going to address that condition? How are you going to say this condition is satisfied? They go there, they do investigation, they find something or they don't find something. Is that condition satisfied? I would say it should come like a comment. How are they going to satisfy the condition?
Yeah, we've had this issue before sometimes. If we make it a condition, then it becomes, it's a circular thing. If staff can't satisfy the condition, it becomes a problem. Marty, would you have any suggestion how we might put something in here? We would really like that this resident's allegation, if you will, be investigated and respond to her. I guess that's, would that be something, how can we put it that it won't be a condition that you can't satisfy?
Madam Chair, when it comes to a water course that may or may not be under this property, the Conservation Authority does, they map all of the water courses. They know where all the services and all that kind of thing are. Our infrastructure department has GIS mapping of where all the storm sewers and all the water courses that have been channelized underground and where those all exist. So that information is available. As to whether or not there's some unknown stream under there, I'm actually not sure how that might be looked into by staff.
Okay, the vice chair has suggested that perhaps we could just simply ask within the motion that staff contact Ms. Skillens on the basis that she submitted this letter and provide her with information as to how she could find this information out through the Conservation Authority. I think that's probably, at least give her the information so that she can satisfy herself as to whether this is factual or not. And the other thing that was suggested is perhaps we should have something circulated to the Conservation Authority. Staff could simply forward this and ask them to take a look at it and respond directly to the resident. I think asking staff to do those two things might be better than making it a condition. So, well, all right, would you support that? Okay.
We don't have a single conservation authority.
That's right. So as a friendly amendment, we would ask that staff investigate the letter from Ms. Skillens and circulate the letter to the Conservation Authority for a response. Okay, so there's that. If that's a friendly amendment, the seconder will agree. Are you the seconder?
Well, actually, Madam Chair, I think it was a motion to by Hank to add a condition. So I think on the basis of our discussion, I'll maintain this, my second to the original motion, or the original motion as amended.
As amended, okay. Okay, thank you all very much for your interest. We appreciate it.
Just a reminder to everyone in the audience, if you want to receive further information regarding this application, please fill out the interested party sheet, the green sheet up front, and return it to me. Thank you.
That way you can receive a copy of the decision and the information. Thank you. Okay, so the last item on our agenda is new business general information. Anything from staff for us tonight? Nothing? Okay. Anything from the committee for staff? All right. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We are adjourned.